The hip is our ball and socket joint for the lower body. Very similar to the shoulder. It has a lot of range of motion for a lower body joint. The big difference is though is actually its weight bearing. So it is responsible for helping us propel ourselves forward in gait patterns like walking, running, skipping, things like that. So helping get yourself more range of motion in your hip can also help alleviate some of the spinal issues that a lot of people have. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Like with all cars, make sure that you're starting from a place of tension. So you can take the stick and actually drive it into the ground a little bit to give you some more stability. Think about putting a lot of your weight, in this case, our left leg, our standing leg, and then I want you to start to cross the midline with your right foot. When you do that, think about picking up your ankle at the same height as your knee and try to maximize what we call external rotation with hip flexion. Once we're there, start to bring your knee to the outside, keeping that left hip bone the same. When you hit that limit of what we call abduction, start internal rotation. As you start internal rotation, allow your right knee to slide downhill and your right ankle to stick outside of your right knee. Then circle back into what we call extension, and now your knee is parked under your hip.
Nice.
Go ahead and reverse. Reach back, ankle and knee are gonna come up at the same time. Eventually your knee is gonna be higher than your ankle. Once you're there, start to spin your hip back into external rotation, and then close that leg and parachute down. Same thing with the left. I'm gonna cross through, pick that leg up, go towards the outside. Again, drive that stick down for more stability. Find that internal rotation. As you do, keep isolating just in the hip, drive that knee downhill, behind you, ankle sticks out, and your knee is directly under your hip. Go ahead and reverse, lift up, ankle and knee come up at the same time, spin that hip back into external rotation, bring it back to the center, slowly come down. Okay, so let's go over compensations, okay? So when we go into flexion, a lot of times we will stop shy of flexion and then we start to sink through our spine and our shoulders. So we bring ourselves towards our foot versus bringing our foot towards our upper body. The other thing is when we go into abduction out to the side, we may also find that as we start to internally rotate, we kick our pelvis out. We get a lot of accessory motion in the pelvis and also in the spine. That's not what we want. One more thing for the spine is that when we go into extension, instead of extending our hip, we start to extend that lumbar. Now the pelvis and the lumbar, they're kind of all like conjoined together, so you might get some accessory motion, but again, how much is too much? We want to make sure, for that to me, if I was your coach, that would be too much. I'd actually like to see that the pelvis stays the same, and then you're just trying to maximize hip extension from there. So that's just what's going on with the spine. Another one that we have with the hip, you brought up the standing leg. Yeah, so the other hip was gonna wanna rotate, right? So ideally, if there was a flashlight here, you keep your hand there, that hip is staying stable. And like anything else, if you see the shoulders rotating, accessory stuff, another last one would be maybe like standing knee. The standing knee starts to bend, which gives you a little bit more length to unlock the pelvis and get some accessory motion in the spine. So there's a lot going on there. The key point again is making sure that it's just the hip moving, you're not moving through pain. Let's get one more rep of practice with all of those in mind and see if you can consciously stop yourself from getting any kind of compensations through there. We'll start with the right side. Find that abduction. Speaking of rotation, go right into internal rotation. Again, try to keep it as much in the hip as you can, and then go ahead and reverse, same thing. Find external rotation, pull yourself back to the center, then back down. Let's go one more time on the other side. Keep it clean. It is cool that you're doing two sides so you can compare left and right. Go ahead and find external rotation, pull that foot up, go towards the outside, internal rotation, and circle back into extension. Really try to exercise as much extension in that left hip as you can without dipping into that pelvis. And then rewind that rep. Great job. Come all the way back down. And there is controlled articular rotations for the hips. Hips are good. Let's make our way down to the knees. We'll see you in that video.